Spending the evening here. I hope that will be helpful and useful to you and on November 6th or earlier, if you choose to vote earlier. My name is Lee Clancy, and I'm with the League of Women Voters of Linn County. The League is a non-profit volunteer political organization that neither supports nor opposes any candidate or political party. The League encourages citizen participation in government and is open to anyone ages 16 years or older. This forum is part of our voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions in the upcoming elections. And we hope that over the course of this program, you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for our state. So, let me give you some forum instructions. This is a forum between Republican Randy Ray and Democrat Molly Donahue, who are running for the office of Iowa House District 68. I have 28 down. 68. I wonder where 28 is. I will start by explaining some procedures for the forum which each candidate received ahead of time. So, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes for a closing statement, and 2 minutes to answer each question. Opening and closing statements will be done in the following order. Randy Ray will be first on the opening statement and last on the closing statement. Molly Donahue will be second on the opening statement and first on the closing statement. We have timekeepers sitting up here in the front row, and the timekeeper will hold up a card that says 30 seconds, indicating you have 30 seconds in which to finish your answer. At 15 seconds, they will hold up a card that says 15 seconds, and please wrap up when you see the stop sign. If you continue to speak after you see the stop sign, I will politely say thank you very much and we'll go on to the next question. Candidates will confine their statements and responses to relevant issues and refrain from personal attacks. This forum is being recorded by Robin Cash in the back by Neighborhood Network News and will be available to watch at the linncounty.org website and the www.neighborhoodnetworknews.com website. Pro Video is also live streaming this event at the Pro Video Productions Facebook page. And are we going to be tweeting information? No. Okay. All right. If you have not done so already, I would like you to please turn your cell phone onto mute or off. If at any time during the forum you cannot hear me or either of the candidates, please let us know. And we request that you treat both candidates fairly. I'd like you to please remain quiet throughout the forum, no clapping, cheering, or calling out, with the exception that after their closing statements, you may clap for both of the candidates if you wish. You are encouraged to submit questions for the candidates on the provided pieces of paper. They look like this. Questions must be addressed to both candidates, not to one or the other, and must apply to issues or qualifications for their particular office. So state issues, not federal issues, not local issues, but state issues. Raise your hand if you would like a piece of paper or have your question collected, and a lead panel member will review the questions for legibility, clarity, and applicability to both candidates. I will read as many questions as time allows, and sometimes I may combine similar questions just to cover as many topics as we possibly can. And also, excuse me, I can't tell you how important clarity is. If I can't read this question myself, I'm not going to read it for the candidates. So please, your handwriting is very important. Okay, with that, we're going to start the candidate forum, and we will start with Randy Ray, and you'll have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Hello? Okay. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on, and for you coming out here and finding the parking lot full and finding a spot to park, and having patience to do that and come here to listen to Molly and myself discuss the important issues that are at hand for the state of Iowa. I've been asked many times why I'm running for public office, and my reason why is because I've had a strong as far as passion for public service. I've served on a lot of housing. With that, I'm also a businessman. This makes me unique in that I am a businessman as well as a teacher for 38 years in the Cedar Rapids School District. With operating in many small businesses, I think it gives me a lot of diversity as far as knowing what the people of Iowa want, along with my educational background. And I've also have had many experiences as a coach and dealing with parents, and dealing with their issues with their children. And I feel that I would like to have your vote and the privilege of serving and continuing my service for representative of House 68.
Thank you, everybody, for being here this evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum this evening. I am Molly Donahue, and I'm running for House District 68. I am running for many, many reasons, starting with the fact that as I go to work every single day for the last 28 days working with special needs students, I see the things that those families are not getting that they need to be successful in our communities. I see my students struggling with mental health illness, and they don't have the ability to get the services that they need any longer. They don't receive the medicines that they need for those mental health issues. The families are having issues just getting to the doctor when they're sick because of how high the costs are. I am running because of all those reasons, plus the fact that we have so many other issues within our state that are hurting Iowans, and I am running to represent the people. I am for people first, and I want to make sure that everybody in the state of Iowa, not just our district, because if I'm the one that gets to go to Des Moines, I will be voting for all people in Iowa, and I want to make sure that all of Iowa is successful and moving forward and growing. So to do that, we have lots of issues to take care of, starting with school funding, looking at health care, looking at women's health care, mental health care. We need clean water for many reasons, not just for drinking, but also because we have recreational issues in our state this summer. Many people couldn't even use the waterways. Again, I am running because I want to help all of Iowans. I want to help the people, and to do that, I need to get to Des Moines to fight for all of you, so I hope that I will earn your vote.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ray, you will answer the first question first, and then you may just pass the microphone back and forth. So we'll start with something that probably is top of mind to a lot of people, and it has to do with civility. What will you do to address and assist in repairing the divisiveness in politics?
First of all, as a businessman and as a teacher, like Molly, we have to deal with a lot of different people coming from all different views. And as far as, first of all, you got to make relationships with those people inside who you're working with. They got to be able to trust you. They got to be able to make sure that your word is your word, and you got to be able to reach out and listen to those people that may have a different view than yourself, and take away the good that they have to say, and making sure that it's the best for the people of Iowa.
Again, as a teacher, I've spent 28 years working with some of the toughest and hardest to reach students and families, and that is what I do for a living. I work with some very tough people to get along with and work with. This is something that is very important to me. We can't get anything done or move forward in Iowa if we don't speak across the aisle. We have to be able to talk to one another. So that is what I will bring to the table. If I get to Des Moines, I will make sure that I always work with people of all views, and that is how we're going to move our state forward. Everybody has to work together.
You may keep it because you're going to answer first this time. And I appreciate that you're not taking your full 2 minutes, because then we can get more questions in.
To the point.
Okay, there are a number of questions having to do with schools and education. And this first one is, do you believe that teachers and support staff should be allowed to have guns, carry guns to protect students and themselves?
I can make this a really short question. No. I do not think that that is going to make us safer in our schools in any way, shape, or form. We already have SRO officers in our buildings who are there to protect when necessary. We do not need to have teachers with guns in the buildings. We would have issues with those guns going missing, heaven forbid. It would actually, to me, make us, as a teacher who is in the buildings today, I will tell you, I would feel much less safe if they were in the building.
I have no problem with teachers carrying as far as if they're well trained. I feel as far as a safety issue for our students and for themselves, every time there's a shooting, as far as massive shooting in the schools, there's always a teacher or a coach that steps in front of the student to protect themselves or to protect the student. I'd rather see that well-trained teacher be able to take the shooter out so they can't cause any more harm, and also that they can go safe back into their families. So with the proper training, and they don't need to know what teacher is carrying and what teacher is not. We have our large buildings in some of these places, in some of these high schools. We only have one police officer that is armed. As far as I believe in the good judgment of our teachers, I believe in the judgment that we're giving them to be able to have the ability to teach our kids, and we're giving them that honor of having that, and we're trusting them with that, of teaching and learning as far as our educational system. Why can't we trust them to be able to carry, to protect our students?
Okay, Ms. Ray, you have the next one. What is your position on giving tax breaks to businesses to further the Iowa economy?
As a businessman, and as looking at this, if we're not doing it, somebody else is going to. These businesses come in, they're looking for a deal. They're looking for whether they can get as far as the best opportunity for their company to be successful. They're looking for good workers and qualified workers. And the state of Iowa needs to be prepared to give them good quality workers. But we also need to be prepared to be able to give those tax breaks in order to get those good quality jobs here. Now, as time goes on, those tax breaks can go away, and we can work on as far as them paying their fair share. But if we're not competitive, they will move on to other states. So it's not that we're the only state in here they're giving tax breaks. Other states are giving tax breaks. So we have to be in the ball game. If we're not going to get those jobs.
I also would say that we need to have some of those tax breaks to bring in some of the businesses, but we need to have better oversight to make sure that those businesses are actually putting more into the community than they are receiving in those breaks. And they shouldn't just run year after year after year without anybody checking to see that they've actually done what it is that they said that they would do for the community. So we do need to have tax breaks to bring in some of those businesses, but I do believe that if we have the best educated students in this state, that those businesses are going to come here because they're looking for the good workforce. So we should prioritize a little differently and make sure that education and that our people are trained for those jobs and make those the priorities, and then those businesses will come, and what we have left to give for tax breaks, we definitely should give to those companies.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, this is for you. We're going back to education. Like I said, there are a number of questions on education. What are your thoughts on funding early childhood education after the $1 million a year cut this past session?
Schools have been underfunded for many years, and that is a problem, and it's showing in our school system and in our rankings in the schools. I do believe that we need to have early childhood education to make life fair for all students. To do that, we must have pre-K and preschool available to everyone, so every child, regardless of their social, economic, family incomes, has the same ability to be successful in school.
Well, you're going to hear a lot about lack of funding in education, and from my counterpart here. and we'll deal with that issue as we go along. But as far as K-12, the funding for pre-education there, as far as the younger kids, the more that we can get them in the building, the faster we can help them out. And some of these kids are coming from very difficult families, and I'm for funding that. But always for what is the outcome? What are we going to gain? What goals are we setting? What standards are we setting for these kids? Are we just bringing them in just to bring them in? Are we giving them the tools they need for later on, as far as when they're going into their first kindergarten school, second grade, whenever on? We need to make sure that that's some kind of standards. We're just not babysitting them.
Okay, Mr. Ray, this is sort of a two-part question, and several people have asked us, what is your position on collective bargaining for state employees? Do you think that the provisions that were legislatively stripped from public employees should be reinstated, and what's your position on IBERS?
Okay. First, the collective bargaining, we did not take away, the state didn't have the rights for them to collective bargain. There's still some things in there as far as they can negotiate. The purpose of the bill was to basically to give more local control in the situation as far as dealing with education and collective bargaining. I am not totally sold on this at this time. But it is a step, I think, forward in the idea of looking into the bargaining process and what we need to do as far as to make sure it's fair for both sides. As far as the IBERS, I have not heard anybody from the Republican or Democratic side that's in it here talk about touching IBERS. It's a political ploy, as far as I've heard. If there's been a sound bite, it's something from, I don't care if it's been from either candidate on the governor's side about IBERS. I personally have talked to the people involved, and there seems to be nothing. It's working, it's doing well. So as far as, I am not going to touch IBERS. I'm going to continue to make IBERS strong for our public employees.
Starting with collective bargaining. Collective bargaining, when they gutted that bill, they basically took away the rights of 185,000 plus employees in the state of Iowa. What that did was take away many of their rights for bargaining for pay, but it also took away their ability to say anything about the safety of their jobs, and that's one of the most important parts of that. If you don't have safety in your position, say you're a security guard at the prison, they lost their rights as well, and because of that, they now have people working way more hours than they should be working at a time, and they have not enough people there, so their safety is at risk, and there have been some issues because of that. So collective bargaining does need to be reversed, and I will be right there helping that happen when you elect me to go to Des Moines. So I do believe that needs to be reinstated. And then as far as IBERS goes, I believe that there was a push to look at IBERS through the legislature last year that was diverted for now. And it is a concern, and it would actually hurt over 400,000 people in our state, which would really hurt the economy in all of those towns where these people live and buy groceries and shop. So we need to make sure that IBERS is left alone and remains in a safe, well, it is safe at this point. We need to make sure that it is left alone and that we continue to use that as the retirement fund for state employees.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, just along the same lines.
I want to be on.
I'm sorry, you want to rebut?
Yeah.
Okay, you have 30 seconds.
As far as the goes as the prison situation, the guards there, one of the issues with was that the people that were older, that were getting all the overtime and costing us a lot of money because they could have the first chance in which to get extra pay. And so it wasn't fair for the younger guys that were coming in. They didn't get a chance to bid on any of that overtime. And so that was one of the issues that they were having with the collective bargaining and the other people being able to.
Thank you. Ms. Donahue, what is your position on developing or requiring a minimum wage of $15 per hour?
I am actually a proponent of $12 an hour to start here, but when I say that, I want to make sure that it's very clear that we need to have a path forward to continue to raise that over the years rather than sitting stagnant for 20 years like we have in the past. Our people are hurting because of these minimum wage jobs. I have family members who are working 2 and 3 jobs and they still can't get by and they still can't take care of their children. We need to make sure that these families have a livable wage and that they have affordable and accessible health care to go along with that so that they can be successful here in Iowa and we can move our state forward. But we do need to increase the minimum wage, and we need to have a way forward for it to continue to grow as we grow as a state.
I am not for the minimum wage being per se raised. If you want to raise it a quarter, that's fine. It's not going to make any difference. I am strongly an advocate of the supply and demand as far as the workforce. The business world will drive the wages. I did a little experiment in my class and I asked the students, the ones that were working, how many of them were making more than minimum wage. Every one of them were already making more than minimum wage. I asked them how many were making $8 an hour. They're still making more than that. It was more like $9 or $10. These are entry-level jobs. We need those jobs for those kids. We need those jobs so that they don't drive away some of the people that are in business. I can't imagine the person at the Dairy Queen paying the girl $12 an hour to serve me a Dairy Queen and how they can still make a profit. Their workforce and business will drive the wages where they should be. And right now those wages are good. There's jobs out there that I know that are $15, $20 an hour that we still can't fill. We still have kids that are not taking and filling these jobs. So it's not a matter about that money, it's a matter of them being qualified for those jobs and being willing to work to get those jobs done.
Can I have a 30-second rebuttal there? Statistics show that over the 77 years we've had minimum wage that never once has the business world taken a dive because of an increase in minimum wage. It may slow down hiring for a few months, but then it goes right back to where it was. So it is important that we make sure that everybody that is working has a livable wage.
Okay, Mr. Ray. How will you fix our mental health systems without putting those who need mental health services, without putting them in prisons when they belong in hospitals?
Okay, these are the question.
Okay.
So that's the mental health as far as the care, or they're talking
It
about?
says, how will we fix our mental health system without putting those who need these services in criminal prisons when they really belong in hospitals?
Diagnosis of mental health is a serious issue and a very complex issue. And as far as when we talk about mental health, yes, we need to get rid of the stigmatism that's being dealt with mental health. There's all sorts of things. There's depression. There's a high anxiety that we need to deal with. As far as we need to first, I think, get rid of, like I said, the stigmatism that someone says that I have mental health. That's a very broad term, you know. And with the care of the mental health, we make sure that we have adequate facilities for them. We need to make sure that we're taking care of everyone that needs that care, and that we basically, it comes down to the care and diagnose and of those people that need the health care, and that we at the state of Iowa, that we need to fund that.
The mental health care system has been failed by the legislature, the GOP legislature and governor at this point in time. They closed down beds in the hospitals, they closed down facilities, and those people were either placed in facilities that are overburdened or they were sent out of state, which costs us even more money. We need to refund the mental health system and get beds put back where they need to be so people can get that help. He's correct, we need to destigmatize it. It's not something that we should be having, labeling people, but at the same time, they need help, and we can't get them help right now because there are no beds for them to get that help. So we need to make sure that that is available to them. We also need to make sure that there are doctors that are available to them because many of them have had to leave. They have no place to practice. So we need to have a lot of things fixed, and to do that, we're going to have to refund by putting money back into them.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, what is your highest priority that you would like to accomplish once elected? And what would you do differently from your immediate predecessor?
My number one priority is what I hear on my doors, and I'm talking to, at this point, about 18,000 different doors. I'm hearing healthcare, affordable, accessible healthcare, and that encompasses not just regular healthcare, but women's healthcare, mental healthcare. So that would be my number one priority when I get to the legislature, is to help reverse some of the things and fix some of the things that have occurred. And that would be number one. What was the second part of that, Ms. Clancy?
I'm sorry?
The second part, sorry.
Just what would you do differently from your immediate predecessor?
Well, my immediate predecessor voted to close down those beds. So I will vote to open those beds back up.
I too would agree with the mental health, but I think we have a little bit different approach in that the mental health issues that need to be done. I think there need to be a two-sided, that there needs to be in the private sector that we can take care of some of these issues. I don't like government running things. I'd rather see the private sector. I think they're a lot more efficient. I would also like to see the state have some say in these issues too, as far as mental health. If we have somebody, for example, that would get in a car accident and they have brain damage and they're not going to be able to carry on as far as a citizen, then as a state we need to step in to make sure that's a fixed cost. We already know how much it's going to cost for the care and take care of that individual. But as far as a lot to do with mental health and healthcare itself, it needs to be as far as the public sector can do a good job and well that we can pitch in with the state. As far as I do think that the legislators admit they've done some things that need to be worked out with the public sector, with mental health and with health issues in general. That's what I would change. I would make sure it's a combination of the state and the private sector getting the best health, because the Iowas deserve the best health care that we can give them.
30 seconds. 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Rebuttal.
Yep. That's your second one. And you'll have two.
You want to get two?
Yeah.
That's what you got to use.
Okay. Mr. Ritter, will you work to repeal the Stand Your Ground law in Iowa? Recent history shows Iowa's law targets communities of color.
The way it's written, the way that I understand it, it has been used in other states and it has worked. There's always flaws and everything, but as far as the citizen has a right to protect themselves if they feel threatened. And so this is something that I feel that at this time I would not repeal.
I would absolutely repeal this law. I do not believe that this is helpful to anybody in any community. It puts people at risk, particularly those of color, and so I would repeal this law.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, how can we lower prescription costs for senior citizens?
Well, we definitely do need to lower prescription costs, and though I am not fully aware of the process for that, I would think that if we had more competition, that we could definitely bring those prices down. And I know that to me sounds like, I mean, it's something that I think the federal government ought to work on. They need to make sure that our pharmaceuticals are being fair to the people. They aren't overcharging. I think there's been an EpiPen issue where they were charging, thousands of dollars for an EpiPen, when that is something that's very vital to many people, and that's not fair to those who are unable to pay for that. So we need to look at what is fair for people, and the pharmaceuticals need to be part of that discussion.
We need quality health care for everyone, not just for the elderly, as far as affordable. And with that, we need to understand that is an issue that needs to be bipartisan. It needs not to be a political issue, because all Democrats and Republicans rely upon good health care. And I think that people that have life-threatening, that need those medications, that they have to have in order to survive, such as severe diabetic, that the state should basically, unless you, Ms. Molly was saying here, Molly down herself was saying, I agree with this, in that we need to make sure the pharmacies are not gouging us and the insurance companies, because that's where it's at. And we need to make sure that those people that have life-threatening, need life-threatening medications in order to survive, that we are providing those for very low cost.
Okay, Mr. Ray, there are 3 questions that are all surrounding sort of sanctuary city, the idea of sanctuary cities. Since we are concerned about helping Iowa children, especially those with special needs, why should we allow sanctuary cities and counties to exist? What is your opinion on sanctuary cities? And basically, would you agree on supporting undocumented immigrants? And what would you do to make Cedar Rapids a welcoming city?
We can't pick and choose which laws we're going to enforce. There's a legal way in which to come into this country. We need to make sure that that is being followed. We need to make sure that it's a fair way for everyone to enter the country that wants to. I feel that we need to make sure that we don't support sanctuary cities. You're making a law and you're telling me that I can take and break that law. I do not think that's right. As far as welcoming people, I think we're a very welcoming country. All we're asking is for you to come in this country legally. And those are laws. And if we change the law, then so be it. But at this time, they are coming in the country illegally, and they need to come into this country the right way.
Immigration is a federal issue, and the federal government needs to step in and make their decision. The states can only do so much. It is something that needs to be dealt with from the federal level. But as far as this question goes, I think that one, diversity is very important in life. The more diverse we are, the more information we have, the better people we become. I do believe that it's important to follow the laws. I just wish that the federal government would step in and do their job and work together to make this something that we can actually put our work around what they have decided.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, this has to do with the cost of higher education. There have been a number of budget cuts for higher education, and as a result, student tuition has risen. How can we make post-secondary education more affordable, and how can we reduce student debt?
Well, much like K through 12, we need to make sure that we are funding our our post-high school education programs. properly and making sure that they are affordable for people to go to. We need to make sure that we have trades and skills available to our people who are trying to retrain or find new jobs, and those need to be affordable. Again, it's the funding that is not being given to these institutions. They've been cut and cut and cut, just like the public school system. So we need to refund that as well.
Okay, 52% or more of our budget goes to education. What more do we need to give? I am for funding education, but there's only a certain amount of piece of the pie. And that's a large percent of that pie going to education. My biggest concern about education is where that money's going. Is it hitting the classroom? Is it hitting the most valuable thing, and that is the kids? Is it making a difference in that child's life? We can't throw money and money after this whole thing. We need to be more efficient in education at all levels. That includes the universities, that includes the proceeds, all the community colleges. We need to be making sure that we're getting the best for our dollars. And at 52% of our budget already going to public education, what more are we going to ask of you as the taxpayers to give us? We just need as teachers, we need to be as administrators, we need to be as communities, we need to be more wise with our money when it comes to spending toward education. And the bottom line is that money given to the student and making a difference in that student's life.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Red, will you work to see that hemp becomes part of Iowa's ag production?
Well, hemp, Iowa used to be, I believe, #1 or 2 in the state, in the United States, in hemp as far as the use for rope. And that, I don't know if there's a market for that anymore in itself. If it would be a valid, I can't see somebody plowing up the field and planting that instead of corn or something. But as far as if they're asking me as far as the THC and involved in the hemp, I don't see any problem as far as making it a crop if somebody wants to try to make that a valid living here in Iowa. If they're asking about marijuana and other things, that's totally different. But as far as hemp and that goes, and hemp oil, I don't see any issues.
Hemp has a lot of great qualities. It grows much faster than a tree and can produce lots of paper, so we would not have to be cutting down so many trees for all that paper. But yes, I'd absolutely allow people to grow hemp. It is good for our economy. It would be good for our economy, for our farmers to grow that. And like I said, it is a fast-growing crop. It can be used for many different things. There's no reason not to have that as a crop here in Iowa.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, this is a question about human trafficking. What can you do to address the human trafficking problems in our state? And what has your education on human trafficking encompassed?
Human trafficking has obviously been in the news a lot recently. I guess the first thing is to make sure that people know that it actually exists, and it is out there, and it is a problem. We need to make sure that we have things in place to help the people who have been put in this compromised position, instead of putting them in jail for whatever it is that they've been picked up for. If they were picked up for prostitution, if they were forced into this, we need to make sure that they're getting the help that they need. We need to make sure that the people who are putting them in those positions are the ones that are jailed for their part in this. My education on this would be, I was over here just recently in the last 2 months listening to some people talk about trafficking in the state. It was a very well attended, at least 1,000 people were there. It let us know a lot about the actual problem here in Iowa with this, and the amount of people who are involved in it, and the different things that happen because of trafficking. It affects a lot of things, from the drugs, the opioid issue here in the state, to prostitution, to STDs. I mean, there's so many things that are encompassed within this trafficking that there's a lot to be done and fixed to help the people who are taken and thrown into this situation.
Well, it is a problem, unfortunately. And we make sure that we enforce the laws that we have, and that we give the law enforcement the ability to enforce those laws. And with that, that means that we are making sure that people are legally here, and that the people are following the laws, and that this human trafficking is an effort between law enforcement and the community. And we're reaching out as far as everyone, as far as reporting or hearing, whatever it would take as far as to make sure that we can shut this down. But it starts with as far as enforcing the laws that we have and dealing with these things.
Okay, Mr. Ray, what is your approach to local control for counties and municipalities?
Well, I'm a state and local issue kind of guy. I believe that the local people need to take and control their money, control their finances. And that with this, I feel that it is a issue that the state controls their money. We control our money as much as possible. So I think that as far as local municipalities and that, as far as if we're not anything breaking the state laws or we're not breaking federal laws, then the states should have the rights to these issues. It's pretty simple. It's what the Constitution really reads.
Local control is something that has come up in the last couple of years in the session, starting with not letting local control with minimum wage. I do believe in local control. We need to make sure that the monies that the state has and that they distribute, that the local areas have that money used the way their community needs it, whether it be in the schools. Cedar Rapids School District has different needs than does College Community. So we need to make sure that there is local control in that money once they receive that money, so that their communities, whatever community it is, has the ability to do what's best for the people within their community.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, will you work to update and assure that citizens have more say in the placement of confined animal facilities, CAFOs? I'm sorry.
I wanted to be part of that. They were just making another comment. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was a little confused because you want the local control on, but yet minimum wage you want to set for the state. I don't want to set a minimum wage for the state just for that example, because local control, again, what's different in Cedar Rapids and that money and that finances and what they control. So you can't have it both ways. You're going to have to give local control, you're going to have to give state control. So on that issue that you just said, I do believe in local control. That also includes when you're dealing with minimum wage.
My apologies again. I didn't hear you. Okay, this one will be for Ms. Donahue, and it has to do with confined animal facilities. Will you work to update, I think it's the matrix, and assure that citizens have more say in placement of confined animal facilities?
Absolutely. The CAFOs that we have today, we didn't even know that some of them existed because the DNR was in charge of giving them the permits or however they receive them. But we need to make sure that we know where they are. We need to know and the reason for that is because of the effect it has on the environment. and the waterways. So we do need to update that matrix, make sure that the cables are not in a place where they can damage the water quality, and we also don't want them to damage the quality of life in the communities of which they surround.
Well, we're all concerned about quality water. It will have some issues, I'm sure, some more questions about that. But as far as building with this, I do agree, but at the same time, we seem to put a lot of this water quality on farmers, and it's farmers that are causing all the water quality problems. I don't believe that is the case. The farmers are well regulated in a lot of these areas, and they are putting a heavy burden on them as far as to maintain that high quality as far as water and maintaining the safety as far as that with the runoff on their fields. So, I think that we need to make sure that the farmers are not being put the brunt of this whole thing, because that's usually what it ends up with, instead of it's a whole community thing when it deals with water quality.
30 seconds. Right now, currently, it is voluntary for the farmers to watch and work for that quality of water, making sure that they don't dump into the water system. It is voluntary. We need people to make sure that that happens. Not everybody is going to follow the rules that have been set in place unless they are enforced and have some oversight.
Okay. Mr. Gray, this one is on women's health care. How will you ensure access to affordable health care for women?
See, I didn't hear that.
How will you ensure access to affordable health care for women?
I want affordable health care for everyone, just not women, for children, for elderly, for everyone. As far as how do we do that, and I think we talked about it, is how you do that. I think you do it with the public sector. I already mentioned that in some cases you have to have the state comes in with the sector as far as maintaining health care for people that have special needs and that can't meet those with their own personal health care. But this is an issue that's not just for women, it's for all, as far as citizens in Iowa.
Though I agree that everybody should have affordable health care, when you are specifically speaking about women, I would fund Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood has been underfunded, or they took the funding away, and that took away a lot of health care for many women, especially low socioeconomic women, single parents. Planned Parenthood spends the majority of their time working on women's health care as far as cancer screenings, female physical type screenings. So I would fund Planned Parenthood so that people can get that care that can't afford it anywhere else.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, this has to do with affordable housing. There are many people in Iowa who are working, but who are underpaid and or underemployed, or have enormous student or other debt. How can we make more affordable housing or affordable loan programs available to these people?
We have a huge housing problem for many people, especially those with low socioeconomic issues. It's difficult. That is a very difficult thing to just fix right off the bat. It takes a lot of different people to be involved. This is not something that should be partisan. This should be, everybody should want housing for their people in their community. So I guess as far as what I would do to try to do that is to work with people across the aisle to figure out what we can do to help that ease that issue for people who are in need of homes and housing. It's something that everybody has to work together, and we have to come up with a plan that works for everyone, that it's not a one-sided issue.
Well, affordable housing housing. You can't, first of all, you can't make sure that the people that are making those houses available to put so much restrictions on them. As a landlord myself, I have so many restrictions that are put upon me as far as the city of Cedar Rapids that I have to fix and maintain that drives my cost up and for the order for me to have affordable housing for those people. There needs to be adequate housing. Not everyone can live in the Hilton. Some of us are going to have to live in a little bit less, as long as the basic needs are met, the heat, the electricity, the things we need to be able to have affordable housing. And so you can't put so much restrictions on the people that are providing those houses.
Okay, Mr. Ray, this is clean water and environment. What are your thoughts on the clean water sales tax, and will you work to reduce damage to habitat by reducing overuse of herbicides and pesticides?
Okay. First of all, the clean water, my concern is, where are we trying to fix in the clean water? I'm a person that if we're going to throw money into something, we're going to put money into something, where is our objective? Where are we heading? Where are we at? I haven't heard anything that's where we have got too many nitrates. What are we having in our water? What are we concerned about? What are we concerned about now than we were 10 years ago? Flint, Michigan, I think, put light on our water and water quality and made us all look into it, which is great. But as far as the water quality here in the state of Iowa, we have farmers. This is the thing. It's just farmers. They pay for that fertilizer to go on that field. They want it to stay on that field. They want to make sure that it gets the best they can for the crops. They don't want it to run off. They don't want that topsoil that's so vital to them to run off. So they're doing what they can for their own benefit to make sure that is they're getting what they can as far as for their soil and the best for their crops. So they're not the culprit if we're talking about clean water. Again, I want to know what we're trying to solve in the clean water and what our goals and objectives are, instead of just a general, we need clean water, we need clean water. Yeah, we do need clean water, but what are we looking at that's wrong with our water that we need to fix? And as far as the environment goes, yes, we need to make sure, again, that we are protecting our environment, but yet we have to understand that it's not coming all from the farmers and from their fields and that runoff. It's coming from our lawns. I can go out and I can throw fertilizer in my yard and it can wash down right away down into right into the waterways. We do this. We're the farmers. They can't do that. They're not allowed to do that. They have straight restrictions on what they can put on their fields. So we need to know where that's coming from to solve the problem.
I think the question was the 3/8 cents thing.
It had to do with the clean water sales tax and what you would do to reduce damage.
All right, well, as far as that 3/8 sales tax, that is a $120 million max fix for a $1 billion problem. The problem is the runoff into the water, whether it be pesticides from our yards or whether it be from the farms because they don't have the buffers or the cover crops protecting the waterways, or coming from the CAFOs because it's seeped into the water aquifers. It's a $1 billion problem. So whatever is done to do this, to fix this, it's going to take both sides. It's going to take multiple different ways to fix this, not just the 3/8 cents tax. That's just a kick in the bucket for what needs to be done for this problem. So as far as that goes, I would work with people across the aisle and within my own party to make sure that we come up with those ways to meet the $1 billion need to take care of our water, because it is that important. As far as the overuse of pesticides, again, we just need to make sure that there are cover crops. We need to make sure there are buffers between the waterways and the aquifers from the farm runoff, whether it be from the CAFOs or whether it be from the crops that are grown. We just have to make sure that those are there, and right now it's voluntary for the farmers to do that. So again, some oversight, making sure that they are doing exactly what they're supposed to do to protect those waters.
Okay. Ms. Dunham, with the large amount of corporate takeovers, what is your plan to preserve small business Main Street?
Small business Main Street is very important. I grew up in a household of small business owners, and they are the backbone of our towns. We need those small businesses. They actually employ the majority of the people in our state. So again, we talked earlier about tax credits. I would like to see that if we are giving tax credits to businesses, that we make sure that those businesses are our Main Street businesses, not big corporations that do not need our tax dollars.
Well, I'm a large businessman myself, a small businessman. And as far as I feel that the businessman, we need to make sure that those tax cards are equal across the board. And I believe that when I talk to the small businessmen, they're doing well. They're happy. They're overjoyed at what's happening in their business. They are doing very well. And we need to know that we are number 2 as far as right now unemployment in the state of in the United States. We have the second largest unemployment. We are doing well economically, and so that reflects not just in the national level, it reflects in the small businessman, it reflects in everyone. So as far as the small businessman and the large businessman, and if I'm a small businessman and a large community wants to buy me out, I'm going to let them buy me out. It doesn't mean that the economy's bad. They're still going to have to employ people. I do believe in small businesses, but we're all there to make a profit, and we're all there to do the best we can for our employees and ourselves and for the economy. And I just think that we need to continue with tax cuts for both small and large businesses.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions here on immigration. There's a growing Hispanic population. There are a number of businesses in Iowa that have been charged with hiring undocumented immigrants. How do you see that affecting the Iowa economy, and what is your position on holding companies accountable for their hiring of undocumented workers?
Well, they should be held accountable if they're breaking the law. And this is, again, somewhat of a federal issue, and so, in making sure our borders are secure and that people are coming in legally. And if somebody's hiring someone that they know it's illegal, which they should know, so they should check them out and make sure the qualifications are there, they have the right social security number, they have everything they need, and for them to be able to be employed, they should be penalized. And whatever that may be as far as according to the letter of the law.
There are a lot of undocumented workers that have been working in our state alone. There is a way for employers to check to make sure that they are hiring legal workers, but I do believe that some of them choose not to because they can pay less, and that's an issue across the country. Again, it's a federal issue as far as making sure that people are held accountable for following the law. We need those workers because we have a lot of jobs in the state that can't be filled without them. A lot of jobs that we don't go out and do, picking the fields, that's something that we need people to do, or those farmers would go under. We need to make sure that there's a way to get legal employment if you're coming to this country to work, then some way for them to do this legally and not be hired illegally by employers. So again, it's put on the federal government to make sure that they put together some law that dictates what happens with immigrants into this country. And then we need to make sure that the states follow those laws by their hiring practices.
Okay. This has to do with services for Iowans with disabilities. The MCOs have led to a loss in services for Iowans with disabilities and has created a labyrinthine process to access those services. In addition, low reimbursement rates are making it hard to retain good respite providers. How will you fix this?
reversal in Medicaid so that people are getting the services they need and the people who are providing those services are getting paid. As far as respite workers go, we need to make sure that they also have a decent living wage in that position. To do that, we have to reverse what's happening in our state right now. It is a failed program under the privatization. We need to reverse that, get it back and working for the people and making sure that people are getting what they need and that the people providing get paid.
I think we need to give it some time. It's not perfect, but I've been working on several doors myself, and I find that they're getting this thing that it's working. They have less paperwork. A lot of them are providing services, are getting paid correctly, and they're being paid. That's the big thing. So as far as I think we got to give some time before we do and throw out the Medicaid the way it's working at this point in time.
Okay, Mr. Ray, what can be done to reduce violent behaviors in the classroom so that every child can learn?
First of all, I think we have to take and make sure that we are not dealing with mental illness in the issue. It's just that we're dealing with the behavioral issue. And with that, we have to be able to make sure that teachers have the ability to control their classrooms and that the students understand the respect they have to give those teachers, because if they do act out, there's going to be consequences. They're going to actually have to have something that they just can't get put down in the office and then all of a sudden taken back. I was hit for the first time in my 38 years of teaching this last year of my teaching, and the student was back in the school within 3 days. She assaulted me, not once but twice, and assaulted a police officer, and she was back within 3 days. That cannot happen. We cannot let our schools be ran that way. We don't want the other students, they don't want that. The normal students that are there, they're behaving. We see this. We need to be put that back in the classroom as a teacher that I have authority to be able to send those students down there, and those students need to know that there's going to be consequences in their actions.
I happen to work with those students and have for 28 years. That's my life. Those students are acting out because, one, they are receiving the things that they need, whether it be the mental health care, whether it be the medication that they need to control those behaviors, whether it be their home lives are horrible. What we are lacking is enough funding for the schools to make sure that we have the resources available to help these kids. Yes, there's some discipline issues. There are going to be discipline issues, but is it better to send a child home to a home that isn't going to help that issue, or is it better to have the services available in the building to provide what it is that they need to learn how to not act that way or to be that volatile? It's, there are people who look at that from both sides, but as a teacher of these students, I know that they are lacking services, a lot of services, and underfunding the schools has increased that issue within our buildings. So we have to fund the schools, we have to get those resources that those students need, because it is about the kids. Everything about education is kids first. And so that funding is getting to the kids, and that's how we have to fix these problems. We need to fund the schools.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, yes, Ms. Donahue. This is about money in politics. Our pay-to-play system of financing elections means that corporate special interests can buy off elected officials. Will you push for a small dollar donor / public financing system to get big money out of politics?
I will say, as a school teacher, the money in politics is pretty scary because you don't make very much, and when we're talking about the cost of things, it's high. One, I personally, it doesn't matter how much somebody gives me, I'm going to vote the way that my constituents want me to vote. But two, yes, I would like to get some of this money out of our politics so that we aren't so focused on that, and we're focused on the people and what the people need in our state.
I too would like to limit that, but as far as I'd like to go a step further and say that you should be able to donate to a politician outside of your state and possibly even outside your district. We can have people that come in and basically flooding the market here in Iowa with money from outside our state and trying to influence our politicians. I too going to vote for what's best for the people of Iowa. And there's no way, but you have so much money that's involved in these issues right now that's flooding in from all over. And I recommend, first of all, if you want to start slowly with this, cut it so you can't have any Iowa, anybody outside of Iowa.
Okay, Mr. Ray, there are three questions that really have to do with basically the same thing, and that is the state budget and taxes. If we need more money for mental health, preschool, K through 12, colleges, low-income housing, healthcare, water quality, public sector unions, and the disabled, where is all this money coming from? Are you in favor of raising property or other taxes? And what does fully funding the appropriations budget mean?
That's what I want to know. That's the cost of the money. We don't need to raise your taxes. I'm not here to raise your taxes. I'm here to make sure the money that you are putting in is going to be spent wisely and effectively. That's what my duty is as the person that's here, that you would put me in a position as your state representative. It's your money that you're putting in, because you run the state. You run the state with your money. So as far as I hear this funding, that's why I'm wondering, where's all that money coming from? Where's it going to go? And my thing is that money that you're giving me as a representative is supposed to be fiscally sound as far as spend. And that's what I'm here to do. So I'm not in favor of raising the taxes. There is adequate money at this stage right now. The budget is balanced. We have a surplus. So we're doing okay. We just need to make sure that what's happening is that money that's being put in is not going to all these other issues. It's going to where the bottom line is, and especially like in education, that's getting to the kids. If it's water quality, it's going to water quality with a sound goal in mind, objective of what we're trying to do to solve those problems. And sometimes we just throwing money off these issues, but we have no clear-cut plan. We need clear-cut plans when it comes to spending your money.
I agree that we need to make sure that we're spending the money in the right priorities. So we need to start by prioritizing where we're spending that money, starting with schools and affordable and accessible health care, making sure that people have what they need. Once the people have been taken care of, then we can look at those tax credits and give out what's left instead of the other way around. So we need to make sure that we are prioritizing how those monies are spent, period. That's our main problem in Iowa, is where is the main money going, and is it doing the best thing it can do for Iowa? We need to look at our infrastructure, we need to look at lots of different things, so we need to make sure that that money is prioritized in the right places.
Okay, this has to do with the growing elderly population. There is an upcoming issue of when many elderly baby boomers can no longer afford to pay to be in a senior living situation. How will Iowa afford to take care of needy seniors?
We do have a growing elderly population, and Marion is a huge example of that. You can see that the buildings are being built constantly. There's a new one right on Highway 100 right now that's going to open up very soon. Again, we need to make sure that those care, and those care costs are affordable. We cannot let our elderly down on this because they have worked their whole lives, and there's too much at stake for them to just be floundering out there and not being able to take care of themselves. So we need to make sure that those costs are kept at a fair price for people so that they can afford to be in a situation where they're in a assisted living or even a system that is a stair step for, they move into for a while and can take care of themselves there. They need more care, they can get that care. It needs to be, the prices need to be held down so that they can afford that. They deserve that in the end of their life.
That is one of my concerns as far as the state of Iowa. We're the third oldest population in the United States. It shocks you, a lot of people. When you look around the audience, you won't shock you. So, you don't know. With that, I tell you, it starts with us too. How many of you have sat down and talked to an elderly person, or went out of your way to make sure that they're being taken care of? And there's some of you out there doing that. It's just not a money issue, it's a personal issue, making sure that we're all taking care of the elderly. It's also an issue that I find that they are not up on what facility, what they can do, what's out there. I recently just went to a assisted living facility, and the lady showed me her room and was telling us how great it was that she lived there, and that she couldn't afford it if it wasn't for HUD and all the Medicaid, Medicare that she's getting, and that she is very, very happy where she's at. And one of the things when she was talking to the group, we were amazed how many other ladies didn't understand where to go to get the facilities they need, where they could go to get lower health care, where they could go to get their prescriptions filled a little cheaper, where they could go to get to catch the bus to go where they needed to go. So sometimes it's just a matter of informing what's available to them at this time.
Okay, Mr. Ray, this has to do with qualified workers. How will the candidates increase the number of qualified workers needed for high-tech industries? And that includes teachers for STEM subjects.
Well, we need to make sure that, first of all, kids are being educated to, you're finding out what an educated person is. To me, an educated person is, and what our duty is as an educator, to make sure that a kid uses the talent that they have, and that they reach with the success that they want and the dreams that they want, and that we give them the opportunity to do that with their education. And that means that they may end up having to go and want to be a mechanic, and that we need to make sure that they are adequate in having the ability to be the best mechanic they can be. It's just not high-tech jobs, it's all jobs. What jobs do we need to do as far as kids, where their passion is, we need to make sure that they're plugged into schools, that they're not troubles. It's one of the discipline problems the kid's bored in school, because he doesn't find it relevant. And when he doesn't find it relevant, and he knows what he wants to do, and they know what their passion is, why can't we go into a tech school? Why can't we put them into whatever area they're most successful at, and they're going to want to be having to make a living at? And that doesn't mean if it's high-tech or low-tech or whatever we're going to call it, just as long as they're being in a position where they can be successful. And that's what our duty is in school. And so that means we're going to have to make sure that we are putting students in different types of schools. So I don't like to call alternate schools. I like to talk to them that we're just putting them in different types of schools where they can be successful.
We first need to make sure that our schools have all of the necessary resources to provide for those 21st century skills that are needed for the workforce today, whether they are going to be a tech or into a STEM type program later outside of school, or whether they're going to go into the trade. We need to have all of those things available within our schools. Those resources should be there for kids to start those learning processes right in our K-12 schools or our pre-K-12 schools. we have those opportunities beyond the 12th grade at the communities, through the trades, or through apprenticeships. If they want to go into that direction, if they want to go into the STEMs, then we need to make sure that we have the programming available at our universities that will help guide them to those types of positions. But we need to make sure we have all of that available, starting in our public school system, so that kids are prepared to move on beyond public school to whatever it is that they are passionate about and want to go into outside of the K-12 system.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, what is your position on ESAs, vouchers, and school choice, and why?
I'll start with school choice. Everybody has the right to go to whatever school they want to, but I do not believe in vouchers. The public funding belongs in public systems. That was what it was intended for and what it needs to remain. That is the promise that we give to all students, that there are some people who prefer to have a privatized education. That is their choice, but that is also their cost. So I do not agree with vouchers. I believe in the public system for schooling, and I believe that the public dollar should stay within the public system.
I feel that as far as it's up to the parents to be able to choose their education for the kids. And as far as vouchers go, I think it gives us the opportunity to have some competition in education that'll hopefully make us better. I feel that if we're doing an adequate job in the public schools, we'll keep those kids. I do feel that at the end, the parents want a choice, that they have a kid that they feel that could go to the school that's across the way, that they should have the right to do that. But there is a problem in that we will have to deal with, and that is all sorts of things when you're dealing with students, even in open enrollment, and that is the idea of busing and getting the students there, and so there's logistics to it. But I am in favor as far as letting the parents decide where they're going to educate their kids.
Okay, Mr. Ray, what is your position on abortion?
I'm pro-life. I do think there is cases in which there's abortions, such as that of incest and rape, but I'm pro-choice.
I am 100% pro-choice. That is a choice that a woman, her family, and doctor have the right to make, that no one should be making a decision, no man or woman should be making a decision for anyone else in their health care.
Okay, Ms. Donahue, this is not really a question, it's just, I guess, your comment, your say on voter ID.
There is no need for it. The voter ID is just a way to suppress the vote for people who might not have an ID or have a driver's license. It is an unnecessary expense for the state, since there have been no issues with it. I'm against that law. I would like to see that repealed.
First of all, I hope you realize I'm pro-life. A little late here, apparently, for me. But voter ID, simple. I'm for it. Why would you want to be against it? I have to show my driver's license and my identification for a lot of different things. Why wouldn't you want someone to show an ID for one of the most important things you're going to do, and that is to vote? So I don't understand what the issue is and why it's such a hassle, or why it's even considered. It should be that, yes, you have to show an ID in order to vote.
And Mr. Ray, what will you do to protect Social Security and Medicare benefits that we have saved for our whole lives?
Well, and we're trying to figure that one out because it's an issue for all of us. But the one thing, as far as Social Security goes, as far as I'm now at the age that I can collect Social Security, and I feel that we need to protect it. We need to make sure that it's not being thrown into areas in which they are anyone political across the board, Democrat, Republican, and the issue in which we have being in an area in which it could be lost. It's got to be making sure that this is an area in which it's being put into, so it's going to be able to grow. It's going to be something that we're going to have to face and fix. I don't really honestly have to work with others, and I don't know the answer to that, but I'm willing to listen to people that have more insight to that. But it's a concern. Again, when we're having across this, not Iowa, but across the United States, we're having less as far as number of people working and more people that are getting of age. But that's going to be a problem, and I'm willing to listen and to learn more so we can protect Social Security, that which I have paid into.
Spent on those priorities first. So I, again, hope that you will go out and you will vote for me. I would love to be your representative.
And Randy Ray.
I too want to thank the League of Women Voters and you for showing up tonight, and I'd like to thank Molly for her participation in allowing us to share ideas and thoughts that are important to you in the state of Iowa. I'm a person that cares about the quality of life here in Iowa and your quality of life. I value myself as being physically sound. I always going to remember this. I'm always going to remember this. It's your money. You drive the state. It's your money that's taken, and we have, as far as the state that you are giving to me to take care of. And with that money, I want to make sure that money is being spent wisely. So I hear about is we need to fund this, we need to fund this, we need to fund this. We are funding these things. We need to make sure that the funding is going to the place it needs to go, and that's to solve these problems and issues that you're concerned about as a taxpayer. And as far as your vote, I would take and make sure that your dollars are being spent wisely, and to remember that tax dollars would belong to you, the taxpayer. So I'd be honored to have your vote and to be your representative in District 68. And thank you.
I'd like to close the forum with a few words of thanks. First of all, thank you all for coming and spending an evening with us. I think it shows how much our community cares about the people who represent them. I think our national legislators could take a couple of lessons from these two in civility and how to deal with and communicate, because I think that both of these candidates have shown that they have a passion for what they are doing, that they deeply care about not only this community but our state as a whole, and we are really, really fortunate to have the quality of candidates that we have, so please give them some applause. I'd also like to thank Linn School District for allowing us the use of this facility. It certainly has been a great facility for this purpose. And to both of you, much good luck in all that you're doing in the future, and thank you both very much for your interest in representing all of these people. So thank you, and thanks for being here.